In the early 1900s, in a dust-choked village on the northern edge of Mexico's Tamaulipas desert, a boy went missing. His name was Mateo, and he was 6 years old. He had wandered just past the thorn fence at the edge of town, and then he was gone. Search parties scoured the scrubland. They looked in wells, under boulders, and even checked animal dens, but Mateo was never found. No blood, bones, no trail at all. He was just gone. But the villagers needed someone to blame. And in every version of the story, they all turned to the same person. A widowed woman who lived in a crumbling shack just past the mesquite line. She didn't go to mass. She spoke to crows. Her windows were covered with bones and herbs. To the town, that meant one thing. Bruja, a witch. They dragged her out at dusk and tied her to a tree, and as the sun fell, they lit her on fire. And that should have been the end, but it wasn't. That night, a storm rolled in from nowhere. Not a drizzle, a black sky, trees snapping, full-throated thunderstorm. People said the wind sounded like a woman screaming, not wailing, screaming. And when the morning came, her body gone. Only thing left was a ring of scorched earth. But in that ash, villagers found giant white feathers, too large for any bird in the region. And on the church's bell tower, someone spotted a massive white owl with the face of a woman. It stared at them and then just vanished into the clouds. From that night on, things changed in the village. Children would hear a baby crying outside their windows, and men, they would hear a whistle in the brush while walking home from the cantina, never to be seen again. One woman swore she saw a shadow pass over her home and watched her crucifix fall off the wall at the same moment. Over the years, more people went missing. Cattle were found gutted in the fields, roofs were scratched through, windows were broken, with no signs of who or what did it, but always the feathers remained. And today, more than a century later, the story is still told across northern Mexico and South Texas. They say the woman who was burned alive made a pact with the devil, and she came back. She became something else. She became La Lechuza, the owl witch who screams through the storm. So who is, or what, is La Lechuza? Well, on the surface she's described as a giant owl, but not the kind that you would find in a field guide. This thing, this creature, or Mexican or Texas witch can transform into a massive owl. It is said to stand 7 feet tall, with massive white or gray wings stretching 15 feet wide. Her talons are strong enough to crush bone, and her eyes, burning yellow or blood red. And her face, human, a woman's face. Some say it's twisted with rage. Others say it's blank, like she's already seen your soul and judged you unworthy. But here's the part that gives even the hardened ranchers chills. She cries like a baby. La Lechuza uses this sound, this perfect high-pitched infant cry, to lure people outside their homes at night, because no decent person ignores a crying baby, right? But when they open the door, nothing's there, until she drops from the sky. She also whistles sharply, a sound that's nearly impossible to place. People think it's the wind or maybe an animal, but in folklore, if you whistle back, you're doomed. That's her invitation. And if she follows you, she remembers your face. And one day, whether it's a week or a year, she'll come back for you. To understand La Lechuza, you have to go back, way back, before modern Mexico, before the Spanish, before the church bells and adobe missions. We're talking about ancient Mesoamerica. Back then, owls weren't just animals, they were messengers between the living and the dead. In Aztec belief, owls were connected to the god Mictlantecutli, the lord of the underworld. When an owl flew by at night, it was seen as a warning. Death is coming. The Maya believed owls guided souls to Xibalba, the underworld. But not all of them were benevolent. Some were tricksters, some were omens, and some were considered spirits themselves. So the connection between owls and death have been carved into cultural memory for centuries. It's not new. But then came the Spanish Inquisition. When Spanish colonists arrived in the 1500s, they brought Catholicism and a deep fear of witches. They believed that certain women, especially midwives, healers, or those who lived alone, were making deals with the devil. Any woman who didn't conform, or who had too much knowledge of herbs, nature, childbirth, they were branded a bruja. And what animal was most often tied to witches in Europe? Owls. So the ancient respect for owls in Mexico, their role as spiritual gatekeepers, was flipped. Now owls became demons, witches' pets, harbingers of hell. That's when legends like La Lechuza began to take shape. And somewhere along that colonial border between Mesoamerican reverence and European fear, she was born. A woman wronged by her community, burned alive, and sent back to haunt the night in the body of something that they all feared. A giant, silent hunter. But that's just one origin. In other regions, the story changes. In one version, La Lechuza was a mother, her child killed by a drunken villager, and no justice was ever served. So she made a deal with the devil to come back, not just to mourn, but to punish. That's a theme that never changes. In every version, whether she's a witch, a mother, a midwife, she returns for one reason: retribution. It was the winter of 1975 in Robstown, Texas, a small dusty town just west of Corpus Christi. Nothing much ever happened there, that is, until people started seeing something strange. It started with the dogs. One night, around midnight, several families reported their dogs barking uncontrollably toward the sky. Some dogs even broke their chains trying to escape their own backyards. Then came the first sighting. A man named Miguel Garcia was walking home after playing dominoes with his friends. As he passed a stretch of pecan trees, he heard something flapping above him. Thinking it was an owl, he looked up, and what he saw stopped him cold. Hovering above the road was a bird, except it wasn't. Miguel said it was as tall as a person with wings bigger than a car's windshield. It had glowing red eyes and the face of an old woman. Her mouth didn't move, but he swore he heard her laughing. He ran home, didn't look back. He wouldn't talk about it for years. But he wasn't the only one. Within days, more reports came in from Banqueta Alice and even Corpus Christi itself. People saw a creature diving over roads, scratching up roofs, and perching on water towers. Bear with me. Local newspapers dubbed it El Pájaro Gigante de Robe, the giant bird of Robstown. Some believed it was a prank, and others thought it was just mass hysteria. But one detail kept surfacing in every story. The bird had a woman's face. Churches held emergency masses, and some parents refused to let their children walk to school. And one man claimed that his truck was attacked, the windshield shattered, and deep gashes were left in the hood. No animal, he said, could have done that. A Tejano band even recorded a song about it, El Pajero Gigante. Eventually, the sightings faded, the panic passed. But to this day in Robstown, you'll still find murals of La Lechuza painted on convenience stores, tattooed on arms, and carved into memory. Because whether it was real or not, something happened, and no one who lived through it ever forgot the scream in the storm. If you ever find yourself on a lonely road in northern Mexico, or in a ranch house in South Texas, and the dogs suddenly go quiet, you might be too late. But folklore gives us rules. And when it comes to La Lechuza, the old-timers will say, you don't fight her with strength. You fight her with knowledge. These aren't Hollywood spells. These are old dirt-in-your-hand written traditions passed down from abuela to granddaughter, whispered at kitchen tables, and carved into the back of prayer books, and tucked inside crucifixes. And the first rule? Never answer the sound. If you hear a baby crying in the night, if you hear whistling near your window, don't open the door. Don't whistle back. Don't speak. To respond is to invite her in. Rule 2. Salt. Salt isn't just seasoning. In many cultures, it's protection. In Mexican lore, salt purifies and it blocks evil and grounds spiritual energy. That's why people pour lines of salt across their front door or windowsills so she can't enter. And some even keep little pouches of salt tied with red thread near cribs, just in case she's listening. Rule 3. Iron. This one comes from old Spanish beliefs, which bled into Mexican superstition. Witches and spirits are said to fear cold, forged iron. In rural homes, people would hammer nails into window frames or hang rusted horseshoes over doors. A rusted blade under your bed was believed to keep her from slipping in through dreams. Rule 4. Prayer, of course, but not just any prayer. When people speak of La Lechuza, they often talk about faith not as a shield, but a lifeline. A whispered rosary, a candle lit before dawn, a crucifix clutched so tightly that it draws blood. Some say the only thing stronger than her scream is a mother's prayer. There are tales of men drunk, staggering home, and hearing her wings behind them, and surviving only because their mother was praying at that exact moment. Rule 5. Call her out. I like this one, but it is risky. Some say that if she's circling your house or scratching your roof or tapping your glass, and you suspect that it's her, you can drive her away by cursing her. Yes, cursing her. Call her names, curse her blood, shout, insults, dare her to show her face. Why? Because in some versions, La Lechuza is bound by shame. Her anger is unstoppable, but if confronted directly, she recoils. Her human side, the side that remembers betrayal and pain, doesn't want to be seen. But if you're wrong, if it's her and she's not ashamed, then you just made yourself a target. These rules aren't from fairy tales. They're from people who still live in the shadow of her wings. People who have seen what she leaves behind, the claw marks, the feathers, the silence. You don't need to believe in her for her to believe in you. So if you find yourself on a porch at midnight and the wind dies down and you hear a baby crying in the mesquite, go inside.